The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor.
Hello there, Friday folks.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one. Issue one. Bitcoin briefly rises above $24,000, extending its New Year's rally amid a broader gain in tech stocks. That's right, Dan. The price of Bitcoin is back. What do you think? Is this the real rally, or is it possible that it could still go lower?
Well, I mean, as I've been caught out by in left field. So we're out of left field, or whatever the saying is, because I was anticipating that it would, as January historically has been pretty poo for Bitcoin, and as this article says, this is actually the biggest, the most what's the word? It's the biggest January pump since 2013, which is pretty much when I got into Bitcoin and thought to myself, nah, Bitcoin's not going to go up that much. I'll wait to buy some. And then obviously it went up a lot more. So 10 years on, plus 10 years plus on, and I haven't learned from my mistake. But obviously there's a bit of a wider gain from the tech stocks. So Bitcoin's, I wouldn't say riding on the curtails of that, but it just seems to be there's the interest rates going up. I think maybe people are thinking, well, inflation, although they want to put the interest rates up to curb inflation a bit, it's not going anywhere for now, so might as well keep on putting your money into Bitcoin. But ultimately, it's 24,000. It's still about a third of it's just under a third of it, over a third, sorry, of all-time high, and I think people can see that it's very much at a discount right now. And I was hoping it would be a mega discount at about half this price. I was like waiting for 12K. But no, it's the thing is, you've got to think to yourself, is the dollar cost averaging really does work? Because if just actually dollar cost averaged instead of waiting for a massive fire sale, then things would be different right now. But there's still time. I think people are still thinking that this is a bit of a bull trap, as the technical analysts say, with their triangles and such, and protractors and all those things. And that they use for their charting. So maybe there will be a bit of a pullback. I don't know. I'm kind of hoping there is, obviously, so I can actually get some stack some sats. But either way, Bitcoin's here to stay.
It is amazing that Bitcoin never does what you want it to. You always want it to go a little lower. You always want to get a piece. And like Dan's saying, that is the real power of dollar cost averaging. If you're buying like $100 a week, you'll get a taste of each one of the buys. You never know when a crazy event like this happens where Bitcoin goes up 30% in a week or whatever it just did, that kind of thing. And if you get the benefits, if you're in the market. I did have some low indicators there. A friend of mine told me Bitcoin was dead. And I was like, oh, I should mark that on the chart. That's impossible. And really, we've gone nowhere up from there. A lot of people use Kramer as an inverse indicator. Kramer said, get out of crypto, sell everything. And a lot of people have marked that as the bottom. I don't know if this is the true bottom or the end of it. We've had people like Cathie Wood with her investment company coming out and saying that Bitcoin could go to $500,000. And she put another 1.5 million of her investment money into Bitcoin. She was also buying Tesla and Coinbase stocks at the low, as was I, but with far smaller stacks. I think Cathie Wood moves around some heavy money. Dan, what do you think about Cathie Wood's prediction? Do you have more on that?
Well, I think was it this week actually that Coinbase won their appeal against the SEC. So that, I mean, they're actually 8% down today, which is interesting.
Well, today's is a stock thing, but yeah, Coinbase went up 25% yesterday, matching Facebook for 25%, or Meta for 25% up on the day. And yeah, because Coinbase won that lawsuit, they got the government to dismiss it. I think it was about their Earn program, and what the government said is that it was just marketing. Was the court's decision is that Coinbase didn't actually give out any loans, so there are no penalties to come down here. They attempted to offer the Earn program, but they were blocked by regulators.
Yeah, was it Coinbase that brought bought Earn. The Earn used to be 21.co, right? Was it 21.co? I think
They
it
did
was,
buy
wasn't it?
21.co and
Yeah,
they had
which
Earn. It can also be confusing because I think the Winklevi with their Gemini had an Earn program, and that's currently the thing that lost all of its money allegedly through
yeah,
Genesis Trading, which gave the money out to FTX, which gambled the money on hot dogs or something. So
yeah. But it seems
yeah,
like it does. We've reached or actually past that part now. We're essentially we're up for what 13 months. If it's the end of March, so 13, let's say 13 and a half months away from the next Bitcoin halvening. So it really is coming very, very fast. I mean, it seems like only yesterday we did like the halvening show in 2020, and it's 2023. Time absolutely flies. So it's not going to, Bitcoin's not going to stay low forever. And although no one can, it's very well, say no one, someone probably did call the bottom, but very few people can call the bottom. So you just need to wait for a period where Bitcoin seems lower than it should be, right? And it should be higher right now. I think that there was extra turmoil laid on by the old, by the sort of the Great War of Russia and Ukraine, and that's had a lot of lasting effects. And I think that we probably should have been, yeah, I don't know, maybe we should have been a bit higher by now if it wasn't for that. But then that wouldn't be in pattern with the 85% loss from all-time highs, at 15 months before the halvening. So maybe we are on the upturn. I don't know. Get the triangles out. Get the
if it
blackboard
wasn't
out.
for the war in Russia, if it wasn't for FTX, I think what's important here is that we're back out of the FTX 6-month downturn. If you look at that, and it can be so hard to try to time the bottom of Bitcoin. Usually it's when you feel the most despair, when you feel like selling, that's usually when you need to buy more. So that can be very difficult for people to do. That's why you wonder why people are hodling. And it seems like such a stressful strategy because you lose all this money. But then on a day where it goes up, you're like, oh, that's why I hodled, because I didn't know it would be Tuesday. Everyone's like, oh, if only you just invest this or that. If you're hodling, if you're dollar cost averaging, you get the advantage of these ups, but you also see a lot of downs. Whereas people who had a stop loss or something like that, you'd be right out of the market, but you'd be right out of these ups. The altcoins went up as well, Ethereum following, Polygon, Aptos, some other ones went up crazy. But it's time for you, Dan, to compete against the Bitcoin predictor ball. The price of Bitcoin's been up recently. Will it be higher or lower this time next week?
Well, I'm for selfish purposes. I'm predicting and hoping it's lower.
I will continue to stick with higher. I've been pretty bullish about Bitcoin, but if you have that Kathy Wood long-term approach where you're like 500K, $1 million, what's a couple thousand here or there if you're going to go to that level. So here we are. What does the ball say? This is the baldest, truest predictor. We just had Groundhog Day. I didn't even get to watch it yet. I'd love to watch Groundhog Day again, but here we are. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? Yes, definitely. Yes, definitely. The ball has spoken. Positivity rules the land. Moving on to issue 2. Issue 2, Bitcoin community erupts in existential debate over NFT project Ordinals. Some are calling the new protocol, which stores NFTs, aka JPEGs, on Bitcoin, an attack on the blockchain's original mission to conduct financial transactions. Others say the new use case should be embraced along other demands for block space. Thomas Hunt. I'll have to call on myself here. So I guess this is possibly partially my fault. Also Theo Goodman's fault and Rare Pepe's fault. We all wanted these collectible trading cards and we all thought it was fun. And what we used to do is things like the interplanetary file system. You could store your file in there and you could just store a link to the file. That way you wouldn't have to store the whole file. What they seem to be doing now with Ordinals, from what I've read, is storing the entire JPEG in the Bitcoin blockchain. Now, there's a great back and forth debate on this with Luke Deshear, not Dash Jr., and they were going back and forth, and basically, because of SegWit, the blocks can look like they're official, like they follow the rules, but only contain a JPEG. So if you're willing to pay to put the JPEG in there, you can buy the block space. So it's like a market. It's a whole thing. Now, does this make the blockchain too big? Does this go back into the whole big block, small blocks thing? Does it push out other legitimate transactions, people actually using Bitcoin? Yes, it does. Yes, it's going to be a problem. Yes, it's a big complex mess, but people want to collect their trading cards. At the very core of this, these are similar to colored coins that we used to have, or the idea that Satoshis could be numbered. And it's something that I've been talking about for years with the whole Segwit debate back and forth. This does help. Having the Satoshis numbered does help things like Carpellis with Mt. Gox, where he's like, the money's stolen. And we're like, well, it was Satoshi number 105 that was stolen. Check your list. Do you have this one? So on and so forth. It helps for a lot of things. It hurts for a lot of other things. That's why it's such a great topic. I wish we had more people here to debate. Dan, Eve, what do you think about ordinals, adding JPEGs, NFTs, and basically a whole lot of data to the blockchain?
Well, it's definitely kicked a hornet's nest, right? So Luke Tashir has he's been advocating for smaller blocks for a long while. Maybe that's because he prophesied, he saw this coming, that it would be used for non-financial transactions. And I think I like his tweet when someone said, how did they manage to do it if it wasn't, in the rules? And he said, by lying and tricking the code. I thought that's just brilliant. But at the end of the day, it's a difficult one because it's a free market, right? It's a free market, fee market. So if people want to pay for the block space, the miners can pay for it. There's obviously, there's been a bit of uproar about people saying that these transactions should be censored, when maybe the better approach would be saying, if you want to avoid using the censorship word, it's difficult to avoid the censorship, but if you don't want it in there, you can educate people as to why it's bad, but not say the C word, the censorship word. But ultimately, there's other people that are advocating for it, because they're saying, this is going to drive up demand for block space, and it's going to improve, but it's going to not improve, it's going to make the fee market compensate for the block for the halvening, right? So as the block rewards go down, there needs to be real demand for the via fees for the transactions, so that Bitcoin can stay healthy and secure. So I can see kind of both sides of the discussion.
To be clear there, Dan, you just said that NFTs could save Bitcoin.
That's I was not even paraphrasing. But no. Well, technically, yeah. I mean, that's a thing, right? If there's a discussion about the fact that the block halvening could be a threat to Bitcoin because the miners aren't going to be paid enough fees, and you're putting demand in other ways by adding other utility, then it's logically you would increase the fee increase the fee incentives, and therefore help bolster Bitcoin security, because
I'd like to thank the Academy. I'd like to thank my agent and all the little people out there. When we had the idea and we said, hey, let's bring art and collectibles and baseball cards and fun to the blockchain, and sure, we brought it to Ethereum. Other people brought it to Counterparty, and we all traded all those cards together. Who would know that, mere 5 years later, people would say, hey, we can solve the Bitcoin fee market problem with NFTs. I'm excited. I think it's great.
I think it's a cool idea. At the end of the day, it's using Bitcoin for more than just financial transactions. Obviously, that's, some people deem that as an attack on Bitcoin. But one thing that was brought up in the Coinbase article was that people are likening it to what's the word? To the I'm trying to think now. So the censoring of transactions is being likened to just, it's taking it beyond its original use case of money, and therefore it's defaming Bitcoin by it, and not necessarily attack on Bitcoin, but it's an attack on its use as a financial instrument, because you're impeding it growing as a financial instrument by using it for other purposes. So it's going to make fees more expensive for people that do want to use it for just normal transactions. Now, obviously, we've got Lightning Network that makes the fee structure, or the fees are a lot better, and helps you transact Bitcoin for sub pennies, rather than paying for a dollar or whatever the average transaction is at the moment. But I don't know. At the moment, it's difficult to see, from my perspective, how this isn't kind of a positive thing. I mean, it's definitely sparked a bit more debate in the open arena. But and if people miners want to censor the transactions, they can. But ultimately, that miners want to make money. And I know that people will say, "Oh, I mine because I want to secure the network," but miners need to make money. And so if you're going to take a fee from some guy who's putting a monkey JPEG on Bitcoin, and it's going to give you more money than someone who's paying for a normal transaction, then you're going to take the monkey JPEG.
Exit question. Are NFTs, ordinals, good for Bitcoin? Thomas Hunt. Well, I don't know if they're good, but I think I agree with Dan that they're fun. They're exciting. They're different. It's happening to everybody. I like the way that this kind of collectibles idea keeps coming up in everybody's faces. They're like, well, I never thought of it as a collectible, but now I have to, because maybe these are collectible Satoshis. Maybe they are really nice. Maybe one time Adam Back sent you some Satoshis and you should have saved them. I don't know. Maybe Peter Todd bought a hat off your brother. All kinds of things happen and people get collectible Satoshis, but now they'll be able to mark them with a JPEG. All they have to do is buy a whole block, which I suppose will cost more and more in the future. So I'm going to go with good now, probably bad later. It's like tribbles. They're cute at first, but they get out of hand. So I could see some kind of limitations. Maybe one of every 10 blocks is reserved for financial transactions, or one of every 10 blocks is reserved for Lightning Network to get those packets through. Some kind of moderation. But again, that would probably be a hard fork. That's probably going to be new network rules and a whole nother battle to the death. So I don't know how they're going to solve this, except that it might just be a fad and it'll blow over, especially as block prices increase. Maybe it's time for a halvening. I would ask Satoshi. Dan, Eve, what do you think? Are ordinals, Bitcoin NFTs good for Bitcoin?
I think they're kind of good in the short term, in engaging in getting attention from other people that were using, say, Ethereum, right? It's it's getting more people learning about the technology. And there was like a meme I saw the other day about Eth heads scrambling to learn about Bitcoin and how ordinals work in order to get to use Bitcoin. So it's kind of it's gravity, the gravity of using Bitcoin is helping out, pull in people from other chains that kind of thought ETH was Ethereum or whatever was the only place to have your NFTs. But long term, if Bitcoin does become the great financial savior that we all believe it to be, ultimately the financial transactions will probably dominate, and you'll see that the NFT transactions are so few, and they'll be only for the most expensive of those NFTs. You won't have cheap JPEGs, for example. It will be like the Bored Ape Yacht Club of NFTs only. That would be the top tier NFTs that would be appearing in the blockchain, because it would be too costly for people to have cheap crap filling the blockchain up. So it'll only be like the most, what's the word? Yeah, the most extravagant NFTs that you'd find on Bitcoin, simply because of the price that it would cost for block space.
Now you're just advertising. Now you're just making it happen. The most extravagant NFTs, the ones you must get, the best ones. We'll have to see. Moving on, check out worldcryptonetwork.com, where we've got 30 videos. That's right, 3,030 videos. We started about 9 years ago. Isn't that amazing? Worldcryptonetwork.com It's entirely free and it's on YouTube. Issue 3, Damus pulled from Apple's App Store in China after 2 days. Yes, there's a brand new Nostr client in the house. It's called Damus, like Nostra Damus. No one's going to get that, but we'll explain it anyway. It's a great app. It allows you to use the Nostr network, which kind of seems like Twitter, but is really called Notes and Other Stuff Relays, something like that. And it's a great service. Ben Ark, right here on the World Crypto Network, helped start it with the help of Fiat Jeff and many other great programmers on the internet. And now it's gotten to the point where an easy to use iPhone app is available in the App Store. There's also one for Android. Of course, for a little while, it was very popular in China. People could use end-to-end encryption to talk to anyone they wanted, but of course, China cracked down on it. I heard it was also one of the top apps in Hong Kong. I'm not sure if Hong Kong has banned it yet either, but still, this is why we can't have nice things, but it works in much the rest of the world. Dan, Eve, what do you think of Nostr, Damus, and the rush to replace Twitter?
I feel a little embarrassed now because I didn't click about the Damus being Nostradamus. That's really quite cool. But it was only a matter of time, right? China's so heavy on their censorship that they have to crack down on this because they really don't like dissent. As we've seen, through the years, especially with the kind of the lockdown COVID visits where people were live tweeting their situation and they'd have the government turn up at their door telling them to delete a tweet. So it unfortunately it didn't last very long. But soon enough, there's going to be other different implementations, and people will find their way around it as they always do. Just like miners found their way around sneaky ways of mining Bitcoin still in China, obviously on a much lower scale. But ultimately, I think there's been quite a lot of uproar with since Elon took over Twitter. So you've got people that are itching to find a new channel to communicate on. Obviously, with Bitcoin. The decentralized nature of Bitcoin, that's got a lot of heads turned and looking at Nostr as an alternative to Twitter, and also because of the censorship, right? So people don't like the idea that content should be censored, and you should be able to block, not block your own content, but just curate your own content without an algorithm doing it for you that you're not too happy with. But ultimately, it seems like the user base of Nostr, I can't remember the specific figures, but it's growing insanely fast. And it's going to be big. It's going to be very, very big. And it's going to be potentially unstoppable if it becomes decentralized enough. So there are still centralized servers. I think it was it 300 or something running Damus? But the more we creep into decentralizing that, then the more it's going to become an unstoppable force like Bitcoin, and becoming censor resistant, and just different implementations, right? Because Damus is just it's an interface to Nostr, right? It's not so we're just going to see it will end up being whack-a-mole with different interfaces popping up that interact with Nostr. I wonder if the other countries will follow suit. I mean, even the EU has turned around and said, as an organization, and they said, what was it? They said something like, when Elon took over Twitter, like, you've got to comply, with our rules. And so if I wonder how Nostr would be viewed by them if Twitter, which is a centralized organization, isn't censoring stuff. Then how is an uncensorable platform like Nostr going to fare? What's their opinion going to be to that? So it'd be interesting to see how the EU and other countries' governments react to a censorship resistant form of Twitter.
Well, that is always the problem with these centralized services like Twitter. They always start out really well, and then when it's time to censor them or shut them down, you know exactly where to go to. So they grow really quickly because of their centralized nature. They get advertising and VC and other funding, but they're also open to this government or lawsuit attack. I would say, yeah, Dan, Damus is the easiest way to get on Nostr, but certainly not the only way. So if the Chinese citizens want to work around it, they can. They're really only stopping kind of low-tech Chinese citizens. So maybe grandma can't communicate with end-to-end encryption using this weird software, but the kids certainly can, and maybe a problem for them. There are relays where you can pay to have censorship as a feature. Remember, the downside of censorship is things like 4chan and 8chan and absolute like disgust, madness, and pissing people off for fun and all that. And if you wanted to pay, there are certain relays already popping up, which fulfill what Neil Stephenson wrote about in his book, Fail or Dodge in Hell. And he wrote about how the internet would be so filled with lies that you would have to get a professional editor to filter your feed so that you could read some truth, and also to filter your public feed so that some truth could be out there about you, because every imaginable lie would be there. And I feel that we just got so close to that so fast. I remember just last year, a few years ago, Ben and the other guys were working on this idea. They were describing it. Now it's here. It got name check in Elon Musk's threatening letter when he said, no one can promote any social networks but me on Twitter. And he put "and Nostr" in there. And I was like, whoa, what is he talking about? And for a lot of the time, I'm sure that it's probably pretty easy to run these and I could follow the instructions and I could get it installed, but I'm just too lazy. But by the time this one's out, it hit the Apple iStore. I tried it out. It's really easy to use. As a user, you don't know that it's running relays or anything like that. It just seems like Twitter. It's pretty quiet over there. Still trying to get some followers, trying to get some people chatting, get going. All the Bitcoin people are very excited about it on normal Twitter, but when you get over to actual Nostr, it's still very quiet. So we could use a little bit more of that excitement in writing some posts, even if they're maybe about something else. But yeah, Dad, it's definitely the time for the Twitter clients, the Twitter clones to rise up. I'm also on a network called Spoutable, which is very cool. It's been started by Chris Boozy and the Bot Sentinel people. So they have a big focus on stopping hate speech and stopping kind of negative action on Twitter. So they're going to have more of a controlled environment, if that would interest you. There's also one called Spill, which has been started by former Twitter employees, and which, like Spoutable, is actually both Black-owned businesses. So it's very cool. It's very interesting to see some alternatives to Twitter, which was started so long ago at South by Southwest when they got their big break, and pretty much run by white guys and now bought by a white guy. So we are getting some alternatives there and other places. No one knows which one will take off and win. Like Dan said, Nostr has been gaining a lot of users, especially with this easy to use iOS app. Beyond the Bitcoin community, though, beyond that, I'm not sure. But if it keeps adding features, if it keeps getting better, if it has these relays with the censorship, which unfortunately will probably be necessary, we're talking mainly like house cleaning. It's like not like opinion shaping, more like just no horrible stuff.
Yeah, of course it starts off that way, but
it's the way.
I like that meme made me think of that meme, like some people can pay for censorship if they like, and it made me think of that like govern me harder daddy meme, censor me harder daddy. Oh yeah, I'll give you $10 to censor the hell out of me. Yeah, I don't know, it just seems
funny. It is funny to think about paying for more censorship, but on the other hand, I mean, having the horrible and especially the untrue come in, because if you trust your news source and you're reading it and it like flashes up something just completely untrue, like you naturally get fooled because it's your news source. And if you want that to stop happening, because it happens like many times a day over and over, maybe you would go for the more censored or filtered or edited or whatever word you want to use.
Echo chamber. Echo. You could, if you want to make the echoes more prominent, then you can censor things that you disagree with. Even if they may be factually true. I don't know. It just seems a bit, dare I say, slippery slopey. That it says, oh, it's just housekeeping, but then there would be more like, well, I don't really agree with this opinion, so I don't think the people who are running through this node should have to hear that opinion as well. I don't know. I think that there's lots of things that are very subjective in terms of, you know, how you view a particular statistic, whether you view it as a good thing or a bad thing. And so just by disagreement over whether something has a net positive or net negative effect, saying that it's not truthful, I think it can be a bit dangerous, you know, to a certain extent. Obviously, there's proper bad things of misinformation, like the voice mimicking recently. Like I think I can't remember who it was, but the AI kind of generated voices. Oh, I think it was Trump, and it was like, oh, it was terrible, and it was like, and he said it was, I can't even remember exactly what it was about, but it was basically Trump's voice. And I saw it shared and like, oh, Trump's gone completely crazy now. He's saying all of this, and it wasn't actually him; it was AI generated. So there is definitely something where that it is completely made up, and it's dangerous to share, and not necessarily about Trump, but something else where it could be an authoritative figure saying something that makes people go crazy. And you know that's got to be kind of censored. You know, well, not censored.
Well, I think you're right. I think
oh God, I said the C word.
You've already fallen down. Well, I just think that it's not all a slope. We're going to have some of this, some of that. We're going to have a mixture of systems because, like you're saying, these deep fakes can be so real. And imagine if you didn't have a filter, you'd be out there. Every news article would freak you out because it'd be like, Tom Cruise is a horrible racist. And you would read something horrible. And this person was in a naked thing and it would be naked. And this person and it would just be the worst imaginable story one after another because of the lulls, right? Imagine if like the guys who are trolling today and they write a couple of funny lines of text or whatever. Imagine if they could make a full, complete video of a celebrity saying a horrible thing and it looks perfect and it sounds perfect. And especially as, you know, our generation starts aging and so forth, these kind of like mixed digital analog generations, the people who still believe things when you hear them, you know, most young people today, I would hope, I don't know, but I would hope that when you tell them something, they pull out their phone and they fact check it. And they're like, oh, that's not true. Or they're like, oh no, that album was released in 1989, not 88. But you know, you idiot. You know, because you could fact check anything. But I figure older people still believe things. And if you could flash these fake messages at them, I think you could have horrible, horrible results. But then there's a lot of back and forth on this. I think that's why it's a good issue. And we'll definitely be discussing it again. Moving on to the exit question, Dan, what do you think? What's your favorite Twitter alternative so far? Nostr / Damus, Spoutable, Spill, or do you stick with the original Twitter? Go ahead.
I'm not going to lie. I haven't really explored other options. I just sit on Twitter and you know, I just check stuff. But I don't really use it for anything more than watching, I don't know, like random like videos and stuff, and like what's it called, the dude wins or dude's winning or something like that. I kind of like I try to watch positive things. No, it's the one of like dudes posting their wins, and they're kind of like, a lot of them are kind of dudes posting their W's. That's it. Just like, they're pretty uplifting. I kind of like looking at stuff like that. That's kind of quite positive, you know, like people saving other people from burning buildings. And I try and look at because you can just get dragged down, especially in a lot of the politics. There's so much negativity out there, and I find that the more I read it, the more kind of negative and ratty I get. So I try and look at stuff that makes me smile. And I haven't really looked at other alternatives, to be honest. I haven't spun up Nostr. I should do though. I really should do, just to give it a try. But I think that I don't know, I'm quite, as you said, you know, when you have a debate with a friend, you fact check it, and I think I'm quite good at trying to look objectively at something and see multiple different sources, even if I don't like where the source is, that may, as long as it provides evidence to contradict, you know, not contradict it, to prove whatever that it is. But I think a lot of people don't make the effort, and so they'd rather just have something be done for them. And it's kind of the, you know, this thing of don't trust, verify. Some people want to verify everything that they do, and some people want to just trust a source to do it. But the problem is when the person who, or the outfit, or whatever, the organization, the people that are in charge of doing that verifying for you, they can, they can go haywire. So you still got to, you can't trust every piece of information from every source, because there's always going to be crazy things that slip through the net.
Well, sadly, I think as the older you get, the less you want to try new things. I kind of have my set ways in social networking, right? I got Facebook with the family pictures and the political opinions of my friends from high school. I got Twitter with the Bitcoin and some politics and maybe some celebrity sci-fi, little space action, maybe some liftoff announcements. I like when they tell me there's going to be a spaceship taking off. That seems pretty cool. That's a great use for Twitter. So it is hard to go to these new networks. It's hard to kind of rebuild your family there, to rebuild your social network, and to rebuild, like I'm saying, this kind of way of communicating. Like, what do I do on Nostr? Do I put family pictures up? Do I put movie reviews? Like, I'm not sure what it's for yet. Like, obviously, I think what Dan's saying, if you do have a reason, if you do feel that you've been censored and you've been chased off these platforms, you've got to be crazy excited, because there are so many more platforms. There's so many new ways for you to try to get your opinion across, or to just follow people that you like and not to be blocked if those people have horrible opinions or great opinions that just haven't come into fashion yet. I don't know. But I think it's great to have all these options, all these alternatives. I'm still with Twitter, like Dan, unfortunately, whether or not. Elon's done crazy things, blah, 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 blah. But the thing that really pisses me off is removing the preference panel for the non-algorithmic feed. I want it to just be timeline only, chronological. Don't ever show me the algorithm. That's what pisses me off. So, but I've been with Twitter a long time, but we'll see. Moving on to issue 4, Craig Wright's UK case against 16 Bitcoin developers is expected to going to full trial. It's expected for early 2024 following a successful appeal. We've talked about this briefly in the past. This was expected to go to trial. The standards for a trial in the United Kingdom, of the opinion of people that I've heard and so forth, are far lower than other countries. So as whereas this case was eventually dismissed in Norway, this case seems to be going through at least to some of the final or further stages in the United Kingdom. For a refresher, this case is Craig Wright suing the Bitcoin developers for hosting the Bitcoin white paper, among other things. I think he also wants them to give him the money. Dan, is this a fake Satoshi requesting that the Bitcoin developers help him because he lost his keys to all the money and has no proof? And what do you think about the UK aspects of this trial as a UK person yourself?
Well, I think it's every court case that happens, it becomes more nuts that he's able to continue, especially after the resounding win from Ordinal, where they basically said you've been caught out so many times producing fraudulent documents that it's almost a joke case, right? It's a kangaroo court, as they say. So, but what's crazy about this is that his claim alleges that the developers owe fiduciary duties to write or amend the protocol in order to give him access to 111,000 Bitcoin from two wallets whose private keys were stolen and subsequently erased in a hack. That's nuts. That's saying the developers are responsible for my incompetence. Because let's face it, if he was secure enough, he's that much of a genius, then he shouldn't be. I feel bad saying that about after Luke Deshear, because you kind of thought that this guy would never get hacked. But if he's claiming to have invented Bitcoin, then you'd think that he would be a bit more clever about the fact that with his wallet security, especially as Satoshi was so good that we still don't know who Satoshi is. What we do know is that it's very, very unlikely to be Craig Wright. So how could someone who's such an amazing sleuth at hiding their identity be also so dumb that they're going to get hacked? And then just the gall to be able to try and sue developers, but it's as if saying it's their responsibility that my coins to safeguard my coins. Well, I just think it's insane. And they're also saying, so BSV have just released some sort of what's it called? It's a freeze and black freeze and blacklist manager. So where you can essentially report someone and then have their coins frozen and then blacklisted, and then if you can prove that you own the coins, and obviously he's doing that to try and I don't know, almost bolster his case that a blockchain can do it, and therefore if BSV have done it, then the Bitcoin, Bitcoin core team or the Bitcoin team, there's no core. It's a useless word. It's Bitcoin. It's the main Bitcoin. It's the Bitcoin. The Bitcoin team, development team, or developers, it's not team, should rewrite the code so that they can unlock his coins, and that's just ridiculous in itself. But there's other. Someone brought up that the fact that it's kind of similar to how Satoshi came up with the idea of I think what it was like an escrow system, an escrow system where a buyer could essentially lock someone's tokens forever by saying that the transaction wasn't completed. And they're trying to, the BSVers are trying to say, oh, well, that was Satoshi's, therefore Craig Wright's original vision, which is now implemented in BSV, which is the ability to lock someone's coins, to give them back in fairness, like he's trying to go after his coins on Bitcoin, actual Bitcoin. But it's nothing. It seems like from my reading, it's nothing like that. It was but more the fact that Satoshi just was thinking of an actual way to provide a cool, a working escrow method, and that just the fact that someone could just leave the coins in limbo was merely an oversight, which is why that never went forward. That freezing method never went forward, but ultimately. Craig Wright is. I've realized I've said ultimately like 4 or 5 times, but Craig Wright is not Satoshi. It's not Satoshi. He definitely isn't, because so he wouldn't have forged so many documents to prove that he was Satoshi. I mean, it just, and the fact that this goes on, it just really boils my blood. But if in an insane outcome. And it doesn't even bear thinking about the damage though to Bitcoin if somehow this court actually ruled that the developers should change the code. I mean, whether it could even be enforced, how could it be enforced? Because the developers, most of them don't even live in the UK. So how could a UK government enforce the releasing of these tokens via code? I don't know. Maybe I don't even know how it can be done. The logistics of it. Maybe they would have to gain control of the repo from GitHub, right? And maybe that's how it would have to be done. I don't know. I can't even think how you'd facilitate that sort of thing, other than the fact that it's just insane, and that this what's his name, Calvin Ayres, he's got to run out of money soon. Being sugar daddy for Craig Wright's court cases. It's just, crazy. It's mind-boggling. It's just insane.
Well, you know exactly how they'd facilitate it, Dan. They'd get a room full of programmers, and then they'd get a room full of gunmen, and the gunmen would stand next to the programmers with a gun to their head, and they'd tell them to program, and that's how they do it. Now, I read all of Ayn Rand's books in high school, and I'm not a fan anymore. But I hate it when the events of a story make me reference an Ayn Rand book, because this really does sound like John Galt from Atlas Shrugged. The Satoshi with the great Promethean invention, strapped down, chained up, forced to change the invention, to ruin it, to make it less good by lesser men who could never create the invention themselves, like the Ayn Randian echoes write themselves here. And that also goes to the core of this and the ethics and the values of Satoshi, from what we've read of his writing and what we can see of his code and the attitude of Bitcoin. Satoshi wouldn't sue. Satoshi wouldn't sue if he lost his coins. He wouldn't cry and go to the legal system and all of this. It's just completely out of character of the person who designed Bitcoin, the way they designed Bitcoin, the reason they designed Bitcoin. Satoshi would be probably the last person to lose their keys, and the first person to game it out, to be like, well, if I have a brain wallet, but I get smacked in the head, I'm going to forget the brain wallet, or I might give it to someone. If I have a wallet in a box here, if I have a wallet under the cement here, if I bury one, if I put one in space, whatever he's going to do, Satoshi's going to have a plan for that. I don't see Satoshi losing his coins or her coins or their coins and then suing the government to force the programmers to restore the coins. It's just out of character. However, like Dan said, is kind of referencing it, both in the United States and it seems from far away in the United Kingdom, if you have lots of money, you can sue people. So it's important. We're just saying allegedly here, he's making his claims. This is all a speculative discussion, even a satire maybe. But yeah, if you got enough money, you can just keep suing. You just keep showing up in court. You got these gangs of lawyers, and they're all very good, but very expensive. And best of luck to the developers, and I hope it goes well. But it's going to be very difficult with the United Kingdom's burden of proof, which is lower than most other countries.
But surely, like, if I was, if say you're someone that just kept on calling the police, right? You're like about, oh, so and so's been doing this, and there's kind of no proof for it. Like there's a point where the police kind of have to just like stop humoring you, right? You know, like you can't just, even though it's a free resource, as it were, they can't just turn up every time and be like, and you go, oh, there's a pink elephant in the sky. And they're like, oh, we've got to turn up and question him, and where was the pink elephant? Like, yeah, surely there's a point where the courts go, not being funny, mate. Just because you're paying for this, it doesn't mean we have to humor it. Like, you know, there's got to be something like that where there's some sort of law you could pull of like, don't be an asshole. Like, guy's an asshole. You've gone over the asshole line. We're not entertaining this anymore. You've faked so many documents. It's not even worth it. You know, we can't give you the time of day. I'm sorry. Like,
I do think
is there like a legal thing like that?
Well, I mean, for the normal people, I don't think you can call the police too often. They'll put you on the no call list. They'll stop coming, or they'll just arrest you for something and take you in. I don't know. They seem to make up the laws here sometimes. But I think for the rich people, instead of picturing them calling the police, picture them calling a private security company that's designed to make them feel good, that profits off of them. Like, you have to pay the retainer whether you use the lawyer or not, right? So you just keep paying your retainers, you just keep paying your lawyers. They make money, you have money, and I think you can keep. Unfortunately, I don't want to get political, but the former president, Mr. Trump, did sue and was sued by many people. Was common to use this kind of thing and to use it as an evasion as well. If you have enough lawyers, you can evade, you can extend lawsuits, you can keep things going long enough to where they eventually just kind of fizzle away. Unfortunately, I mean, prove me wrong, but it does seem like you can buy your way out of our legal system. Of course, unfortunately, the O.J. Simpson case comes to mind. Many other cases where seemingly guilty people with the greatest representation, the smartest people working for them, get off scot-free, get off with lesser sentences, time and time again. We do see this. I don't know how to solve this. These are complex, but yeah.
That's just mind blowing. How he did win the Peter McCormack case, right? He win like damages of £1, but that's pretty much the only win. Like, you can get, there you go. So Solar Van Life saying you can get sanctioned or fined in the US for frivolous lawsuits. So he's only done one in the US, right? That was the one was it in Miami?
It does seem to be another kind of international loophole that he's using here, where maybe you could sue someone once in every country and not have a problem. Like, I only sued, in every single country once. It's not so bad. But yeah, I mean, it's another loophole. And again, another thing with enough wealth. Like, a normal person has enough problem hiring a lawyer in their own country. But these guys obviously have incredible wealth, hire international teams of lawyers, so on and so forth. So that's why we should say allegedly all the time and all of these things, because this is a satire and so forth. But,
yes, yeah, allegedly. I prefixed everything with allegedly. You may not have heard me. Even when I said the asshole line, allegedly there's an asshole line that's been crossed. But yeah, I mean, even so Sullivan Life saying the lawyers losing their licenses, but you're right. If they're just hopping from one country to another, it's only affecting local jurisdiction. So he can just keep on doing it until Sugar Daddy runs out of money. And
until they're tired of doing it. Yeah.
yeah. But BSV, oh, what a shocker. Savage. I look every now and then, I look if I'm feeling down, I'll go and look at people tweeting about BSV, and then I realize life could be so much worse. So much worse.
Remember when they split off BCH from Bitcoin? That was a 1-to-1 split. So you got one
Oh,
BCH for each Bitcoin. So they were equal in price. So that
yeah.
was a different time. But I think we're running out of time. Dan, do you have a story of the week or a prediction? Go ahead.
I predict. Okay, here we go. Here's a nice, easy one. I predict that by the end of 2023, I'm not sure. I don't think this court case. I can't remember if it said it's going to be in 2023 or not. So they've got another 10 months or 11 months, whatever it is, to plan this court case. But I think that there'll be another big public court case by the end of 2023 where Craig Wright is trying to sue someone else for something stupid. Possibly he'll be, I don't know, he'll be suing the shoemakers for providing heels that were too strong and they made him break his hard drive that had the private keys on, or some stupid stuff like that.
I look forward to this international Craig Wright lawsuit arama. I'd like to see that where it just spins the wheel and country to country. And then there's that problem where if they can win a certain number of lawsuits, they could take over a country. They could make, I don't know, like blankety blank land into BSV country. I don't know. It could happen.
Where in the world next, guys? We're going to be suing someone in Uganda. That's right. We're going to be taking our lawyers over there and suing the Bitcoin developers.
Everyone knows Uganda is the BSV capital of the world, and they're very happy about it. But my story of the week is all about Chat GPT. I've heard about it for a couple of weeks now, and I've been kind of avoiding it because, I do some writing myself. I have to write things now and again, and I don't like the idea of the computer completely replacing me. But now I've used Chat GPT and I'm open to it. I'm all right with it. I think we're going to become description people where you describe things like summarize these articles, include the URL, and you become the ones who's putting the specifications into the computer and it spits out the thing. I had it write a press release for a friend of mine. It was a fantastic press release on the first draft with a couple of minor edits. You could have actually put the thing out. I had it write some songs. I had it write some poems. I just had it write a poem about the organs of the heart right before the show. It spits it out perfectly, no matter what your job is. I think that with ChatGPT, if you see it as a tool, something that makes you stronger and allows you to do things faster and to get kind of rough drafts really quickly, to get versions of things, to say, oh, well, write this in aggressive tone, write this in a slow tone, write this briefer, write this longer, to have those options and to see writing and communication as just kind of a series of dials and tools that you can now manipulate and then push the go button. And much like we used to on C++, you compile your program and it does all these things you don't know what it's doing. And then boom, it executes your program. This thing executes your demand for text. So if you've been putting it off or thinking you don't need to use it, you need to use it. It's even better than Midjourney, or I forget the other name, the amazing AI image generators, which I'm also way into. But they don't hit me like the writing one. The writing one, I'm like, oh, we could have better summaries for our show with, more words for the keywords for the articles. And if you look below, the AI wrote the summaries. Now, the first two are very good. The second two are very bad. But I threw them in there anyway, because in a way they're better to have the AI summaries than not to have them. And I think you just kind of keep looking through your life, like Jerry Seinfeld said about flex tape. He's like, I'm just looking for a place to use it in my life. I'm just looking for that. And I think Chat GPT, as well as Midjourney, as well as whatever the next one's going to be, or the old ones I don't know about, AI is here. It's amazing. I think if you look at it, maybe it's more positive than negative. It can be frustrating if you're like, I was going to sit down and write some original stuff, but instead I jumped it into the AI and the AI wrote it for me. So I don't know about that. Maybe George R.R. Martin can finally finish the gosh darn Game of Thrones series with the help of the AI. I'd be open to that, whatever it takes to get those characters home. Dan, what do you think about AI? I know you've tried out Chat GPT and Midjourney and some of the others.
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, the Chat GPT is, and I've done exactly the same as you. Like, write a promotional email for so and so, and it just writes an email for you. It just takes the effort out. And people could, back when Google was kind of becoming prominent, they were saying, "Oh, well, the problem with using Google, it's just basically cheating. It's doing research for you and just giving you like X number of resources, and giving you these shortcuts, and GPT-3 is doing pretty much the same thing. It's a tool that's helping you come to a conclusion a bit quicker. The fact that it can analyze articles, and you can actually say, or URLs, it can kind of summarize information, is just absolutely, yeah, it's just amazing. And I think I agree with you that I was fascinated by Midjourney when it came out, and I still mess around with it now. But I go for kind of more. I just try more abstract things with Midjourney. It's more like, imagine the dawn of mankind, and see what, those things like that. Imagine the end of time, or the heat death of the universe, or crazy things like that. Draw me, a multi-dimensional Calibre, like something like that. Like some sort of crazy abstract thing that's actually difficult to think of. Or to picture. But the chat thing is it's just amazing. I was using it to learn Mongo. So the other day I was up until like 3 a.m, and I was giving it hints of the tables that I was using, or not giving it hints, but describing the tables I was using. How would I join these? And it would say, like, you've got to create a project, and then you've got to do this, a lookup and a match, blah blah blah. And it's like a teacher it's an amazing teacher that you never had, or that you had like one of, like, all the teachers. I think back and think that's a really cool teacher I had that was really helpful. I could ask them a million questions, and they wouldn't get tired of me. And Chat GPT is exactly like that. You can just ask it over and over again. You can get it to do like all sorts of research for you, so that you can kind of weed out some of the crap information and just focus on the interesting information. But ultimately, I for the 5th or 6th time that I've said that today, in a year's time, I can't imagine where we're going to be when you combine these things, right? When you combine the Chat GPT with Midjourney, with voice, the voice thing, like you're going to be able to create, you're going to be able to create a human that does all of these things with their own moving avatar that's just completely autonomous. Like I can't even imagine what it's going to be like, but it's going to be scary, because reality is going to be distorted so much. There's already, as we said earlier, the voice thing that simulates someone, and you can barely tell that it's not the same person, and this is only the early version of it. So what happens when that becomes ubiquitous, and you can't even tell if it's what if AI grows to, it becomes a prankster, so that it's like your mate phones you up or video calls you and says something or whatever, and it's not even them, it's just like AI fucking with you, like messing you. I don't know. What if,
See, when the AI is prank calling you 12 times a day, you won't call it censorship. You'll be like, oh, that's necessary filtering. That's community moderation right there. AI can't call me 12 times a day for advertisements. Yeah. But no, I agree with Dan. I think it's amazing. It's like an interactive text. You can ask it questions. You can go into more detail. I can only imagine in the future. Imagine if you were reading a book, you didn't know what a word was, maybe a more complex issue, like you're reading Dickens. You don't know who he's referencing, people from the time period. This thing can tell you, it can tell you. And the thing that I find when I'm asking it questions, or I will actually go like beyond, like I know Google will get me the year of this, the date of this. It'll get me to the wiki. Like there's things I can do with Google. But with this, I go to like this kind of questions of fancy, where I go beyond. I'm like, can you summarize this into an acronym? Can you summarize this into flashcards? Is there a better way of doing this? Like, can I tighten the screw easier? Like I try to ask it things that I don't know, and it actually seems to know. Now, again, this could lead to a disaster like the old days with the anarchist cookbook and you blow up your microwave or something. So obviously don't do exactly what this machine does. And maybe fitness, it has you stretching improperly, who knows. But at the very basis, as a test, as a beta software thing right now, you can ask this thing anything. And that's reminds me of early Google, early Alta Vista, Yahoo searches that I used to do back in the day when Yahoo was a directory. And I also want to give a shout out to character.ai because months ago we were playing with character.ai. It played this fantastic kind of a text adventure game. We like go north, and like the spiders come in, and then we could give it any kind of prompt, and we told it it was a Hollywood movie once, and we broke through the fourth wall. And it also has chat bots and lots of other fun stuff. So our more than one company doing this for sure, more than one approach.
It was giving us Bitcoin price predictions, and it was like, and then it was like saying that it was saying, and suddenly the price of Doge exploded, and you traded your Bitcoin for Dogecoin, and then you traded the Dogecoin price dropped, and before it dropped, you traded it back for Bitcoin, and then you became a multi-dimensional trillionaire, and it's just like you took over the galaxy.
The spiders were into Web3, and they had a metaverse and NFTs, and we crashed it. And it was amazing. And it'll go galactic in its time scale. It'll be like 10,000 years, 100,000 years later. Like, it's an amazing program. And really, we should have, especially now that we have even more tools to explore, but we should start having some AI shows where we just have fun with AI and we goof around it and we work with the chat here as well. And the chat could give us ideas and we'll copy and paste from the chat into the thing to affect the story or to ask the all-knowing chat GPT AI something, or to make a cool image in Midjourney. We'll do all that stuff. It'll be fun. We'll do it as a group. You guys can learn at home and you can see us do it if you haven't yet. But if you haven't checked out these AIs, just go ahead, create an account on these websites. Just Google chat GPT and character.ai, Midjourney. What's the big one? DALL-E. I haven't gotten access to that, but that DALL-E, I think, is the big AI image generator. I don't, maybe you have to pay to get access, but try one of these things out. They're amazing fun. Like Dan's saying, you can shoot any kind of idea at it and then see what it says or what it does. And really does harken back to the beginning of internet, the beginning of computer excitement. But
just very last thing, I'm just waiting for the time where they combine all these things and I can say, make me the best South Park episode of all time. And it would just construct you like, I want a 7-hour hilarious South Park episode.
Guess how close we've gotten. Someone made an infinite Seinfeld generator. I think it does animated Seinfeld characters. I think it has the voices like George and Jerry. And I think that it's written by AI and it goes on forever. I didn't click on it. I'm a little afraid, but it's out there. It's a project. It's an idea that exists. You guys can check out Infinite Seinfeld Generator. But who knows what the future's in for us? It's certainly getting exciting. We have to hang in there, see if we can make it to the singularity and so forth. Thanks so much to everybody for joining us. Be sure to give us a thumbs up down below. Hello to everyone in the chat. Be sure to leave us a comment if you're watching this later. We do read the old comments. So thanks so much for that. And until next time, bye.